A cowboy thought he was saving a silent Apache girl, until her tattoos revealed she was the chief's daughter from the tribe he once wronged. Now revenge, loyalty, and fate collide in the desert. Like the video, subscribe for more stories, and tell me where you're watching from. Let's get started. Dust rolled in thick waves across the trading post yard, turning the air into a haze of grit and heat. The Apache girl stood motionless beside the wooden post, shackles around her wrists, her chin lifted not in rebellion but in a quiet, unbreakable pride. Men glanced at her, then looked away, whispering about curses, raids, and the danger of buying anyone tied to the Apache. The trader's voice boomed above the wind, trying to sell fear as much as flesh. But through the noise, Caleb Morgan noticed only her eyes steady, calm. Ancient as canyon stone, Caleb had ridden into town for salt and rifle cartridges, not trouble. Yet trouble had a way of finding men who tried to avoid it. He dismounted slowly, hands loose at his sides, the scars beneath his shirt pulling tight with every breath. He had fought in the frontier campaigns years ago, not out of hatred but out of orders he regretted more with every burial mound he'd helped dig. Maybe that was why her eyes unsettled him. They reminded him of things he tried not to remember. The trader jabbed a finger at her shoulder, bragging loudly about her strength, her silence, her obedience. Lies, Caleb knew immediately. A girl with eyes like that didn't bow easily. She stood with a kind of stillness that made the ground feel smaller beneath her feet. She wasn't broken, just waiting, watching, enduring. Caleb felt a tightening in his gut, something like anger, though he didn't yet understand who it was meant for, the trader, the world, or himself. A pair of cowhands snickered nearby, saying the man who bought her would have Apache warriors at his door by morning. Caleb ignored them. The trader saw his interest and pushed harder, whispering about bargains and blessings disguised as burdens. Caleb stepped closer, the girl's gaze lifting to meet his. There was no plea, no desperation, only a challenge. She wanted to see what kind of man he was. Wanted to know whether she should hate him or wait and see. The coin purse landed on the table with a dull thud. The trader grinned greedily, stamping a crude transfer slip and shoving it into Caleb's hand. Chains rattled as he unlocked her shackles, metal falling away from her skin like shed snakeskins. She didn't rub her wrists or flinch. She simply let gravity take what it would. Caleb gestured toward his horse. She looked at the saddle, then at him, clearly weighing whether to trust him or flee into the open desert. She didn't run. Not because she trusted him, Caleb suspected, but because she understood the truth of the land. A lone woman on foot in Apache country, even an Apache woman, was prey to more monsters than the desert could hide. She mounted the horse behind him without a word, settling lightly, balanced as if born to riding. Caleb felt her tension in the way her breath stayed shallow, controlled. She wasn't resigned, she was calculating. Measuring her freedom not in miles but in moments. As they left town, the horizon shimmered with heat, the sky a white-hot bowl pressing down on the earth. Caleb rode slowly, giving time for whatever fears she held to ease. But she showed no fear, only watchfulness. A hawk circled overhead, its cry splitting the quiet. She raised her chin slightly as if greeting an old friend. Caleb wished he knew her name, but he knew better than to ask too soon. Names among the Apache meant more than identity. Name, heritage, bloodline, belonging. Back at the post, the trader laughed with the cowhands, bragging that Caleb Morgan didn't know what he had bought. Maybe he didn't, but as he rode toward the jagged hills, he felt the weight of something shifting inside him. The memory of flames rising from burned camps. The echo of drums silenced by gunfire. The look in the eyes of men who regretted surviving more than dying. The girl behind him carried the same history carved into her bones. They were strangers, yet linked by a war neither had chosen. The horses. Hooves beat a steady rhythm across the dry earth, carrying them deeper into the valleys that led to Caleb's isolated ranch. At one point, she tested the rope lightly binding her wrists, not to escape, but to understand the man who held it. When she realized it was loose enough for her to slip free, she didn't. That surprised him. He could feel her studying him. Again, the way one studies a river measuring depth, speed, danger. She was not a slave, no matter what the trader claimed. She was something else entirely. Asterisk. As the sun burned low, they paused at a narrow creek. Caleb untied her wrists carefully, offering her water in a cupped hand. She rejected it at first, pride stiff as iron. But when he set the canteen down and stepped back, she finally knelt and drank. Keeping her back straight, her eyes never leaving him, she was testing boundaries, his and hers. Caleb respected that. Something in him softened, though he knew he shouldn't let it. Asterisk. When they prepared to ride again, the breeze shifted, carrying the scent of smoke. Not campfire smoke, signal smoke. Too distant to see the tribe, but close enough for her to stand taller, shoulders squared with recognition. Caleb looked at the sky, then at her, realizing what it meant. She wasn't just another girl taken or sold. Someone was looking for her, someone important. She held her silence, but her eyes flickered with something close to warning. He suddenly felt as if he had taken possession of a lightning bolt without understanding the storm it came from. Asterisk. Night pressed in quickly after sunset, stars flickering awake across the vast New Mexico sky. Caleb lit a small fire, offering her a place near its warmth. She sat opposite him, legs folded beneath her, posture straight as a spear. Shadows from the flames danced across her skin, revealing tattoos on her wrist, symbols he recognized from his years near Apache lands. Marks worn only by the daughters of highborn warriors. Marks of a bloodline with authority. Marks of someone whose disappearance would spark war. Asterisk. Caleb felt the truth settle over them like a heavy blanket. She wasn't a runaway. She wasn't a slave. She wasn't someone to be owned. She was the daughter of a chief, one of the tribes he had once fought, bled beside, and lost too much to forget. And now she sat across from him, silent, waiting, her eyes no longer questioning him but measuring his fate. Caleb Morgan had not rescued a girl at the trading post. He had unintentionally taken the most dangerous kind of lost soul, the one every warrior in the mountains would die to reclaim. Caleb stared at the tattooed markings shimmering in the firelight, the flames dancing across the girl's wrist like they recognized something holy. He had seen symbols like these only twice in his life, once on the wrist of a dying Apache warrior who whispered a name Caleb never forgot, and once carved into a ceremonial drum in a marks of a chief's bloodline. His pulse quickened. The traitor had lied. Or worse, he had known and didn't care. Caleb looked up at her. She watched him steadily, expression unreadable, as if waiting for him to understand the danger he'd stepped into. The desert night stretched silent around them, the stars sharp as arrowheads in the sky. She sat perfectly still, legs folded beneath her, eyes reflecting the fire. Caleb's mind churned. He wasn't afraid of the Apache, he respected them, feared them only in a way a man fears any force of nature. But taking a chief's daughter, even unknowingly, was a death sentence. Tribes didn't let bloodlines vanish, they hunted. They reclaimed, they avenged. Still, looking at her, Caleb sensed something else brewing besides danger, truth. He offered her the canteen again. She refused, turning her face slightly away but not out of spite. Caleb understood. It was pride, ritual, boundaries steeped in tradition. When he set the water down and stepped back, she finally reached for it, lifting it with both hands, drinking without lowering her gaze from him. Trust wasn't granted, it was negotiated. Caleb recognized the exchange. He'd done something similar with scouts in the war. This girl, however, wasn't a scout. She was a symbol of something far larger than himself. As the fire dwindled, Caleb sensed movement in the dark. Not footsteps, breathing, watching. He stood slowly, hand drifting to the revolver at his hip. The girl didn't move, but her eyes sharpened. She felt it too. The night swallowed them in tense silence. Then, from somewhere in the velvet black, a wisp of smoke spiraled upward, signal smoke. Not close, not threatening, but intentional. His spine tightened. Someone knew where she was. Someone was coming, and they were close enough to mark the sky with warnings. They didn't sleep much. Caleb paced in slow circles around the camp while she watched him through half-closed eyes, assessing him, measuring whether he was worth her silence. When dawn finally glowed across the desert, painting the edges of the mesas gold, She rose gracefully, her posture regal despite exhaustion. Caleb saddled the horse, his movements deliberate. He knew they had little time. He could return her to the trader, abandon her, or try to outrun what followed. None of those options were honorable. The fourth option, the right one, was the one that might get him killed. They rode without speaking, the desert stretching wide and open ahead of them. Caleb tried once more to communicate. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I didn't know who you were." She didn't respond. But her shoulders shifted almost imperceptibly. She understood. Whether forgiveness would follow, he didn't know. By midday, they reached the rough stone ridges near his ranch. Here, the cliffs cast sharp shadows across the path, offering shade but also hiding places for anyone following. Near a narrow pass, she suddenly tapped the back of his shoulder, a subtle, urgent gesture. Caleb halted the horse instantly. She slid down without waiting, kneeling beside the earth. With 2 fingers, she traced a faint indentation in the dust, a footprint. Small, light, skillfully placed, but not hers. Caleb crouched beside her. The print was fresh. Someone was tracking them. She looked toward the east ridge, expression tightening, then pointed. 2 prints there. 3 behind them, hunters, skilled ones. The tribe was coming. And they weren't sending amateurs. Caleb's breath grew heavier. He wasn't afraid for himself. But he feared what would happen when they reached her and saw her with him. A rancher returning an abducted daughter wasn't forgiveness, it was provocation. And yet, when he thought of leaving her, something in his chest twisted. He couldn't. She was under his protection now, by choice, by honor, by a sense of responsibility he had never asked for. She must have sensed his resolve, because for the first time she spoke, voice soft as wind. "Why did you take me?" Her English was accented, melodic, unexpected. Caleb swallowed. "Because no one else would free you." She studied him, eyes deep and unreadable. "Freedom?" she echoed. "You tie my hands, you lead me." Caleb looked away, ashamed. "I was keeping you safe." She stepped closer, her presence fierce despite her slight frame. "Safe," she repeated. "From my own people?" Her words cut deeper than a blade. Caleb exhaled slowly. "Safe from the men who sold you," he said quietly. "And from a world that doesn't care whose daughter you are." Something softened in her gaze, not trust, but consideration. She turned toward the horizon, scanning the peaks. Then she lifted her chin with quiet authority. "They come," she said simply. "Today?" Caleb nodded. He already knew. There were only 2 choices left: run or meet them. Running insulted them, meeting them risked everything. He loosened his revolver but didn't draw it. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. She faced him fully. "Do not fight them," she said. "Not for me." "Not against me." Her voice carried the weight of command. He understood. The Apache war party arrived by late afternoon, 5 riders emerging from the shimmering heat like spirits called from the earth. They were painted for confrontation, not bloodshed. Their horses' hooves made barely a whisper against the sand. Caleb stepped forward, palms open. The girl walked past him, straight-backed, regal, stepping toward them with the authority of someone returning to her rightful place. The warriors dismounted, their faces guarded but not hostile. One, a tall man with the bearing of leadership, approached her, touching her forehead gently. Relief softened his features. Then the man turned to Caleb. Silence stretched between them like a taut rope. Caleb didn't move, didn't speak. The leader studied him with eyes that had seen more death than years. Finally, the girl stepped between them, lifting her wrist to show the tattoos. Her voice carried clearly in Apache. Caleb didn't know the words, but he understood the meaning. She told the truth, that he hadn't taken her, that he had protected her, that he had honored her even when he didn't understand who she was. The chief stepped closer to Caleb, so close their breaths mingled. Then, in a gesture rare as rain, the man touched Caleb's chest with 2 fingers in acknowledgement, a warrior's gratitude. The girl looked back at Caleb once, a long moment heavy with unspoken meaning, respect, closure, something like thanks. Then she mounted behind the chief, riding away with her people, her silhouette fading into the burning horizon like a spirit returning home. Caleb stood alone in the desert long after they vanished, the wind rustling through the sagebrush. He had expected death. Instead, he had earned something far rarer: Apache respect. As he turned back toward his ranch, the sun dipped low behind the mesas, casting gold across the trail. He didn't know her name. He didn't know if he'd ever see her again. But he knew one truth for certain: he hadn't saved her. She had saved him from his past, from his regrets, and from the man he might have become without this reckoning. And somewhere, far beyond the ridges, a quiet voice whispered on the wind her voice, carrying the promise that their paths would cross again. When the desert decided it was time,